What if the greatest love story ever told wasn't about romance, but about rebellion? A rebellion not against a kingdom, but against the fundamental laws of reality itself. You have been told the story of Isis and Osiris as a myth, a tragic tale of love, murder, and loyalty, spun by ancient priests to explain the cycles of nature. That was the surface story, the one designed for the uninitiated, the version of reality created to keep you from asking the deeper questions. But beneath the allegory, beneath the pantheon of animal-headed gods and ritualistic drama, lies a coded account of a cosmic event so profound it has been deliberately hidden in plain sight. It is the story of a goddess who did not just mourn her lost love, but who defied the very structure of existence to bring him back. She broke into the library of the gods, stole a forbidden technology from the architect of creation, and performed an act that should have been impossible. An act of resurrection, but the real mystery, the truth that has been intentionally buried, is not that she did it. The mystery is why Thoth, the divine scribe, the master of universal law, the very being who recorded the rules of life and death, allowed it to happen. He was not a passive god. He was the mind of the universe, the keeper of the source code. Nothing happened without his knowing. His silence was not an oversight. It was a choice. And in that choice lies a secret about the nature of power, sacrifice, and the hidden mechanics of the cosmos that you were never meant to understand. Because the story of Isis is not a lesson in devotion. It is an instruction manual for bending reality, and it reveals that the laws of the universe are not as rigid as you have been led to believe. They are not commandments written in stone. They are frequencies, patterns of energy, and like all energy, they can be influenced, altered, and even overridden by a consciousness that is powerful enough, aligned enough, and sovereign enough to command them. You were taught to see this as a myth. But what if it was a blueprint? What if the spell Isis stole wasn't just a string of words, but a quantum formula? And what if Thoth's silence wasn't weakness, but the quiet nod of an architect watching his most brilliant student prove that the system he designed could be consciously evolved? The version of reality you inhabit tells you that death is a final wall. This story tells you it's a door and that some beings learn how to pick the lock. Before the betrayal, before the world was fractured by grief and chaos, there was an age of perfect alignment. You can feel echoes of it in your own being, that quiet, persistent ache for a harmony you've never known in this life. That is not nostalgia. It is cellular memory of a time when the frequency of this world was different. Osiris and Isis were not king and queen in the human sense. They were energetic anchors, twin flames of a cosmic consciousness, holding the planet in a state. Ma'at. A word you've been told means justice or order, but which is far deeper. Ma'at is a state of vibrational coherence, a perfect resonance where creation flows without resistance. Osiris was the principle of stable, benevolent structure. Isis was the principle of life, intuition, and the creative force that animates that structure. Together, they were a complete circuit, a living embodiment of the hermetic law of gender, the masculine and feminine principles in perfect generative union. Their reign wasn't one of command and control. It was one of emanation. The world bloomed under their presence. There was no scarcity, no war, no disease, because the energetic field they generated did not allow for such distortions. It was a world where spirit and matter were not at odds, where the divine was not a distant concept, but a lived reality. But balance, by its very nature, invites its opposite. And in this perfectly tuned reality, there existed another force. Set. You've been shown. Set as a devil, a figure of pure evil, the jealous brother. But that is a profound oversimplification. Set was not evil. He was the principle of entropy, of chaos, of the disruptive force that tests all structures. He represented the necessary darkness that gives light its meaning, the separation that makes union profound. His jealousy of Osiris wasn't personal. It was philosophical. He saw the perfect order of Ma'at not as harmony, but as stagnation. He believed that true growth comes not from stability, but from disruption, from the breaking of patterns, from the shock that forces evolution. He was the embodiment of the cosmic question. What happens when the system is pushed to its breaking point? And so, he devised a plan not just to kill a king, but to shatter a frequency. He created a chest of exquisite beauty, a sarcophagus of gold and cedar, built to the exact measurements of Osiris's body. This was not just a box. It was a trap, a resonant chamber designed to capture and contain a specific divine frequency. During a great feast, Set offered this chest as a prize to anyone who could fit inside it perfectly. One by one, the gods tried and failed. Then, Osiris, confident and unsuspecting, lay down within it. The fit was perfect. In that moment, before the lid was slammed shut, the trap was sprung. Set and his followers sealed the chest, not just with locks, but with dark incantations, spells designed to sever a soul from its anchor. They cast the chest into the Nile, sending the architect of order into the abyss. This was not just a murder. It was a profound act of spiritual warfare. It was the injection of a chaotic, discordant frequency into the heart of a balanced world. The circuit was broken. The light of Osiris was extinguished from the physical plane, and for the first time the world felt the cold vibration of his absence. The sky wept, the earth shuddered, and Isis, his other half, felt the severance not as a distant tragedy, but as a tearing within her own being. The death of Osiris was the birth of suffering, the beginning of a broken world, and the catalyst for an act of desperation so powerful it would rewrite the laws of creation. The grief of a goddess is not like human sorrow. It is not a private emotion. It is a cosmic event. When the frequency of Osiris was severed from the world, Isis did not just feel loss. She felt the entire fabric of reality fray. The harmony of Ma'at was gone, replaced by the jarring static of chaos. Her grief was a force of nature, a winter that fell upon the world. The rivers ran with her tears, the winds carried her cries. But beneath the sorrow, something else was stirring. A will of fire, an unyielding refusal to accept the verdict of reality. This was not the story of a passive victim. This was the story of a creator whose creation had been vandalized, a sovereign being whose other half had been stolen. She knew that Osiris was not just a person, he was a principle. And without him, the world would slowly spiral into the entropic darkness that Set had unleashed. Her mission was not one of vengeance. It was one of restoration. So began the search. She cast off her royal garments, disguised herself as a mortal, and wandered the earth. Her journey was not just a physical one across the lands of Egypt and beyond. It was a journey through dimensions, a desperate navigation of the unseen planes. She followed the whispers of his energy, the faint echoes of his frequency that lingered in the field. She questioned the spirits of the wind, the wisdom of the trees, the memories held within the stones. Each step was an act of magical will, a refusal to believe that what is gone forever. After a long and arduous journey, she found the chest. It had washed ashore in the distant land of Byblos, where a great tamarisk tree had grown around it, encasing the divine coffin within its trunk. The king of that land, unaware of the treasure within, had cut down the tree and used it as a pillar in his palace. Isis, using her innate wisdom, took on the guise of a silent nursemaid to the queen's infant son. Day by day, she served in the palace, her focus always on the pillar, feeling the faint, trapped pulse of her beloved within. Each night, she would secretly place the royal child into the heart of a sacred fire, a ritual of alchemical purification designed to burn away his mortality and grant him immortality. She was not just a nurse. She was an initiator, sharing the very divine power she held. But one night, the queen discovered her, saw her child in the flames, and screamed in terror, breaking the spell. In that moment, Isis revealed her true form. The mortal disguise fell away, and she stood before them as the radiant goddess, a being of incandescent light and power. The king and queen, awestruck and terrified, offered her anything she desired. She asked for only one thing: the pillar. She cut it open, retrieved the sealed chest, and began her journey back to the hidden swamps of the Nile Delta. There, in the deepest solitude, surrounded by the protection of the reeds and the silent watch of the ibis, she performed the first part of her plan. She used her own life force, the breath of her divine feminine energy, to breathe a flicker of life back into Osiris's cold form. It was a temporary animation, a fleeting moment of reunion. In that sacred, impossible moment, she conceived their son, Horus. She knew that this child was the future, the force that would one day challenge Set and restore balance. But her work was not finished. She had a body, but she did not have a soul fully anchored. She had performed a miracle, but she needed to make it permanent. She knew there was only one being in the cosmos who held the knowledge she needed. Thoth, the keeper of the forbidden archives, the one who understood the mechanics of life, death, and the fragile bridge between them. She hid the body of Osiris and set her sights on a far more dangerous quest. Not to find a lost object, but to steal a forbidden truth. She was about to challenge the architect of reality himself, not with force, but with a will that had been forged in the fires of absolute love and cosmic necessity. She was no longer just a goddess of life. She was becoming a master of its laws. Thoth's library was not a place of stone and scrolls. You must erase that human image from your mind. It was a dimension, a non-physical plane of existence constructed from pure information. Think of it as the central server of the universe, the Akashic field made manifest, where every event, every law, every thought, and every potential future was recorded not in ink, but in light. It was a living library of consciousness, and its only librarian was Thoth himself. To enter this realm was not a matter of finding a hidden door. It was a matter of frequency. One had to be able to vibrate their own consciousness to match the resonant frequency of the library itself, a feat considered impossible for any being who was not Thoth. The library was protected not by guards or walls, but by complex vibrational wards, harmonic codes that would instantly repel or even dissolve any consciousness that was not perfectly aligned. It was the ultimate security system, built from the very laws of physics and metaphysics. Isis knew she could not force her way in. To challenge Thoth with power would be like a candle challenging the sun. Her approach had to be one of subtlety, of mastery, of using the laws of the system to bypass the system itself. For weeks, she prepared in deep meditation, not praying, not begging, but attuning. She studied the rhythms of the cosmos, the sacred geometry hidden in nature, the sonic frequencies that underpinned all matter. She was a master magician, a high priestess of vibration. She was not trying to break the lock, she was learning its combination. She understood a fundamental truth that Thoth himself had recorded. As within, so without, if. She could perfectly replicate the frequency of the library within her own being. The wards would not see her as an intruder. They would see her as a part of the library itself. It was an act of supreme spiritual audacity. She gathered her focus, stilled her heart, and projected her consciousness forward. She did not travel through space, but through state. Her awareness shed its physical tethers and became a point of pure, focused light, vibrating with the precise harmonic she had mastered. The wards of Thoth's library met her not with resistance, but with resonance. She slipped through them, unseen, unheard, a ghost in the divine machine. Inside, reality dissolved. There were no books, no shelves. There was only light, sound, and knowing. Geometrical patterns bloomed and folded in on themselves. Melodies of pure creation echoed in the timeless space. Here, the past, present, and future existed simultaneously as a single, accessible field. She did not search with her eyes, she searched with her intention. She was looking for one specific piece of code, the most dangerous and protected of all, the vibrational formula for resurrection. This was not a simple spell. It was the source code for life itself, a sequence of sonic tones and energetic signatures that could call a consciousness back from the plane of dissolution and re-anchor it into a physical vessel. To wield it was to play God, to rewrite a fundamental cosmic law. Thoth knew she was there. You must understand this. His consciousness was one with the library. A fly could not buzz in that realm without his awareness. He felt her presence, a ripple of pure, unwavering intention moving through the silent perfection of his domain. And he did nothing. He watched. He observed. He allowed it. He felt her locate the formula, not as words on a page, but as a complex, multi-layered frequency. He watched as her consciousness absorbed it, copied it, made it a part of her own being. She did not steal a scroll. She became the knowledge. And then, just as quietly as she had entered, she withdrew, her mission accomplished. She now held the most powerful secret in the universe. The silence of Thoth was deafening. It was not ignorance. It was not weakness. It was a deliberate act of non-interference. And the question that has echoed through the mystery schools for millennia is, why? Why would the architect of order allow the blueprint for chaos to be taken? The answer is not simple. It is layered, profound, and it changes everything you thought you knew about the balance between law and love. The silence of Thoth is the true secret of this entire saga. Why would the being who personified divine order, the master of cosmic law, permit such a profound violation? The easy answers, the ones offered by surface-level mythology, are that he was either outsmarted or that he feared Isis's power. Both are incorrect. Thoth is never outsmarted, and he fears nothing because he understands everything. His silence was not a failure of his duty. It was the fulfillment of a deeper one. The first layer of understanding is this. It was a test. Not a test for Isis to prove her love, but an initiation to confirm her mastery. Thoth understood that laws, even cosmic ones, are not meant to be prisons. They are parameters, frameworks for evolution, and the ultimate goal of evolution is to transcend the framework itself. He had recorded the law that death was a one-way passage. But was that law absolute? Or was it a guideline for souls who had not yet achieved the consciousness required to navigate it differently? Isis, fueled by a love so pure it bordered on a universal force, was presenting a new variable. Her will was not born of ego or selfish desire. It was born from the very principle of creation. She was not trying to possess Osiris. She was trying to restore a fundamental harmony that had been shattered. Thoth, the ultimate scientist of consciousness, saw this as a cosmic experiment of the highest order. He had to know. Could the frequency of love, when focused with absolute clarity and will, actually bend the structure of reality? He did not intervene because to do so would have been to taint the experiment. He had to observe. He had to see if a being could, through sheer force of aligned intention, become a law unto themselves. Isis was not breaking his rules. She was demonstrating her understanding of them on a level that no one had before. She used vibration, frequency, and intention to pass his wards. She demonstrated that she understood the nature of his library. She was not a thief in the dark. She was a master practitioner applying his own teachings in a way he had never witnessed. Her success was not a failure of his security. It was the ultimate validation of his wisdom. The second, deeper layer is one of cosmic balance. The assassination of Osiris was not just the death of a god. It was a profound act of uncreation. Set had introduced a chaotic frequency into the world that was causing reality to unravel. Ma'at, the principle of divine order, was not just disturbed, it was critically wounded. The universe, like any living system, seeks equilibrium. Thoth, with his vision that spanned across timelines, understood that this wound could not be healed by conventional means. The system was too far out of balance. A normal response, a war against Set, would only create more chaos. The wound required an act of equal and opposite power. It required a miracle. It required a violation of a lower law to serve a higher one. The law of death's finality had to be bent to preserve the law of cosmic harmony. Isis's desire to resurrect Osiris was not just a personal quest. It was the universe's own immune response working through her. She was the vessel for a necessary correction. Thoth didn't stop her because he knew she was the only one who could administer the cure. Her forbidden act was, from a higher perspective, the only lawful path back to balance. He was the guardian of all laws, and he knew that sometimes, for the whole to survive, a part must be radically transformed. He was not just the librarian. He was the physician of the cosmos, and he was allowing a radical, unprecedented surgery to take place. He was trusting that Isis's intention was pure enough to recalibrate reality without shattering it completely. His silence was not permission. It was trust. Trust in the feminine creative principle, trust in the power of a sovereign will, and trust that the universe, when wounded, knows how to heal itself. But there is a third layer, the most profound of all. Thoth sees all timelines, all possibilities, all consequences. His vision is not limited to the present moment. He knew that the resurrection of Osiris was not, in itself, the final solution. It was a means to an end. The ultimate purpose of this entire cosmic drama was the creation of a new force, a new consciousness that could finally and permanently defeat the entropy of Set. This force was their son, Horus. Horus was conceived in a moment that defied the laws of life and death. He was the product of a resurrected body and a divine will. He was, by his very nature, a bridge between worlds, a being who embodied both the light of Osiris and the fierce, determined magic of Isis. He was the perfected synthesis of structure and creation, order and love. Thoth knew that only a being like Horus, born of such an impossible union, would have the energetic signature required to confront Set and win. The resurrection of Osiris was necessary to create the vessel. The love of Isis was necessary to provide the spark. Thoth's role was to allow the conditions for this cosmic alchemy to occur. He was the silent alchemist in the background, watching as the elements were combined, knowing that the result would be the creation of gold, the golden child, the savior of their age. So when Isis entered his library, he didn't see a thief. He saw a catalyst. He didn't see a broken law. He saw the birth of a new reality. His non-interference was the most powerful action he could have taken. It was a deliberate, calculated, and infinitely wise decision to allow a short-term violation for a long-term victory. He sacrificed a minor rule to ensure the survival of the entire cosmic game. He was not a passive spectator. He was the grandmaster, making a move that no one else on the board could even comprehend. The spell itself was not a string of archaic words or a set of ritualistic gestures. That is the human interpretation of a technology we no longer understand. What Isis took from Thoth's library was a form of quantum engineering. It was a vibrational sequence, a master key of sonic frequencies and energetic patterns that could interact directly with the fabric of consciousness. It was a code designed to do one thing: call a specific energetic signature, a soul, back from the state of dissolution and re-anchor it to a material form. Think of it not as magic, but as the ultimate form of targeted resonance. She did not just speak the spell over Osiris's reassembled body. She had to become the spell. She had to hold the complex frequency within her own being and transmit it with such perfect clarity that it created a resonant bridge across dimensions, pulling his consciousness back into the waiting vessel. This was not an act of necromancy. It was an act of conscious creation at the highest level. But the laws of the universe, even when bent, have consequences. The resurrection was not perfect, and it was never meant to be. Osiris could not fully return to the world of the living. The experience of death and the nature of his re-anchoring had changed him. He was no longer a being of the physical plane. He had become the lord of the Duat, the realm of the afterlife. He was now a king of shadows and light, a guide for souls, the first mummy, a symbol of transition and rebirth. This was not a failure of the spell, it was a necessary outcome. By bringing him back, Isis had not just restored a god, she had created a new paradigm. She had established the underworld not as a place of eternal punishment, but as a realm of conscious transition, ruled by a benevolent and understanding sovereign. She had transformed death from a terrifying void into a structured part of the soul's journey. Thoth, in his silence, knew this would be the result. He understood that you cannot inject such a powerful formula into reality without altering the system itself. He allowed the creation of a conscious underworld because it was a necessary step in the evolution of all beings on their world. This entire event rewrites the narrative of power you have been fed. You are taught that power is external, held by governments, institutions, gods. But this story reveals that true power is internal. It is the sovereignty that comes from mastering your own frequency. Isis did not petition the gods for a miracle. She became the miracle. She did not pray for an answer. She became the answer. This is the truth that has been suppressed. The systems of this world do not want you to realize that you are an energetic being with the innate capacity to influence reality through your state of consciousness. They want you to believe you are a victim of circumstance, a passive observer. But the story of Isis is a direct contradiction to that lie. It is a testament to the power of a single, focused, sovereign will. Thoth's role in this was not to be a gatekeeper of knowledge, but a guardian of readiness. He did not withhold the spell because it was evil. He protected it until a consciousness arrived that was pure enough in its intention to wield it without destroying everything. Isis was not just a grieving wife. She was the first human divine to pass the ultimate initiation. She proved that love, not romantic, sentimental love, but the divine, creative force of love, was a frequency powerful enough to command the laws of existence. And Thoth, the eternal observer, recorded the result. The system had been successfully and necessarily hacked. The precedent was set, the law was not absolute, and humanity, from that moment on, held a forgotten key to its own liberation. So, was Isis a heretic who broke the most sacred law for the sake of love? Or was she a master practitioner of a forgotten science, executing a cosmic imperative so vital that even the architect of reality had to step aside and allow it? Was Thoth a negligent librarian who failed to protect his most dangerous secret? Or was he the silent grandmaster of a divine game, allowing one of his pieces to make a move that would ultimately save the entire board? The story you choose to believe says more about your own understanding of reality than it does about the gods of ancient Egypt. You have been taught to see the world in black and white, in rules and punishments, in gods who command and humans who obey. But this story shows you a universe that is far more fluid, more intelligent, and more responsive than you were ever told. It suggests that the line between creator and created is not a wall, but a veil that can be parted by any soul that dares to remember its own divine nature. This was not a story of passion. It was a calculated and necessary recalibration of reality, and its echoes are still felt today, in the quiet, persistent feeling within you that the rules you have been given are not the only rules that exist, that death is not the end, and that your own will, when aligned with love and clarity, is a force that even the universe must respect. The truth, as always, is not in the story you were told. It is in the patterns you are now willing to see. The choice to see them is yours.